House of the Year, I guess, is a celebration of architecture and design that's coming out of the region. Each year we'd like to celebrate 25 examples of how people live through architecture and design in the region, and just celebrate that and make sure that it's kind of getting consumed on a global scale.
All the projects are very unique in their design approach.
These projects show different things because they're about different but related cultures. So some might be about the extended family, others might be more about connection between inside and the landscape outside. It's making a statement about its location.
I think the projects for Habitus House of the Year show that we love to be connected to the outdoors, which is evident through the porousness of the architecture, as well as visual and physical connections.
The projects that really stood out were the ones where the architect clearly understood the client's requirements and the architect was clearly in touch with the environment.
So there's quite a lot of lovely pattern making in a way.
What stands out about the finalists for this year's Habitus House of the Year is the bold use of contemporary design, or the striking contemporary design.
Some of the regional projects that I really responded to well were the ones that were perhaps a little more raw and using local materials and responding to privacy in an artist retreat, or perhaps it was intergenerational families that needed to be accommodated.
Place was very important. How does this building belong? And where does it belong? And in what ways do we see that sense of place expressed through the building?
I think what's really caught my attention about the projects this year is how they have all universally or across the board, they've shown a connection to nature and a desire to be connected to nature and bring it in. And the architecture can do that regardless of climate.
Like we said, it's on the corner of quite a windy, cold site, and so you get to experience that site without, it's not like open plan living, but you still feel like you're open.
I think that at least now we are coming to terms with the fact that we do have climate change and we do have to think more carefully about how we live with the climate wherever it may be.
What we've learnt is to not fight the climate, but work with the climate. So a very common attribute now is how these houses work with the climate to create a comfortable way of life. As I was saying, when we're
I think increasingly in building design, we do need to think about life without air conditioning. It's very important that we actually understand about ventilation and fresh air and insulation, all these things that add up to make for a more comfortable living environment.
As this series of projects shows, there's not a stereotypical answer to a building. They all relate strongly to the climate.
What I saw in these projects was there's a lot of connection between indoors and outdoors, and there's that space for formal living and entertaining, as well as the relaxed space where people could be themselves and enjoy themselves as a family.
There was one house that really caught my attention in Vietnam. It made a really strong use of a very humble material that we wouldn't often see in the kinds of houses that we typically feature. And that had a lot to tell us, actually, not only about what materials are used in the place, but the design of the house showed us some of the traditions of dwelling, how people use space in different ways, the infiltration of greenery into a space.
One of the projects in particular stood out because of the way it settled very beautifully into the environment, and you could see that it was designed in such a way so that the clients could really enjoy their beautiful surroundings, and you could see there'd be a lot of joy for them in enjoying the home itself.
I think the similarities with each of the homes is that they're about living. They're very functional, but they're also designed to be enjoyed, to entertain in, to have a great experience in. So they're homes to be lived in.
I hope Habitus House of the Year can take architecture and design to a wider audience and show people, who might be interested in the industry or slightly aware of it, that can show them that architecture and design is accessible to all.
I think the thing we'll do as well is spread it to a more global audience, not just Australian but Asian region design is really becoming known more on a global stage.
It'll add to the pool of ideas because there's an overlap in in terms of climate, for example. People can adopt ideas which have been tried out in Singapore or somewhere and then try them, say, in Australia. So there's a lot of overlap in that sense, things that we can learn from others in our region.
I see them all as being projects that we celebrated, which is why we're making them top 25.
I'm really proud that this selection shows that architecture is available for everyone, and likewise I'm also really proud that this shows that, you know, in the subtlest ways, architecture can really enhance the way people live and live through design.